I grew up in a Democratic family. My family tells me I was born a Democratic Irish Catholic, had no option. The day I went to register to vote, I got there at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and the registrar wanted to know where I had been all day because I should have been there at 10 o'clock in the morning. So there were no options in my family. You were a Democrat. I can remember dinner table conversations. The strange thing was my mother started off as a Republican. I remember her crying when Taft lost the nomination to Eisenhower. Then when I was 9 years old, we lived in a neighborhood. During the McCarthy hearings, my mother was out in the neighborhood circulating petitions in favor of Joe McCarthy. And before she died, I'm proud to say she was in front of Danbury Prison with me for the Berrigan brothers. So even Irish women can learn. Dinner table conversations were always political. I had an uncle who was Attorney General under Abe Ribicoff, so we had people like John Bailey and Ella Grasso. I was taken out of kindergarten to serve tea for Ella Grasso when I was 6 years old, so I guess that's my first political experience. But I do remember being the only kid in my kindergarten that had a Madly for Adley button instead of an I Like Ike, so that made me stand out. My father was very active in local politics. He was on the RTM, our representative town meeting in our town of Fairfield. My mother eventually saw the light. She worked at a Jesuit college, and those are the guys that can do the best blackmailing or brainwashing ever. So she became a rabid Democrat also. Hated the Roosevelts because Franklin Roosevelt got us into war and our only brother was killed. So that finally related until the Vietnam War came along and my brother was at risk and my mother was willing to fund him to go to Canada. However, the caveat was she would go with him. So he joined the Jesuit seminary instead. So that's how our Democratic family progressed. I got married. My husband and I were married the weekend before he had to report to active duty at the Great Lakes Training Station. He was on the Newport News in Vietnam, came back and went to law school. We had 5 children. There was a period in my life where my mother and dad, my 2 grandmothers, my 3 great aunts, and my godmother and my godfather died in 5 years. I'm the oldest Irish Catholic daughter. Irish Catholic daughters do the job. The joke in the family was that I had a standing order at the funeral home, and I would call up and say, "Hi, this is Eileen, give me the usual." And it worked, so anyway, my husband was working in New York, he was commuting, we were living in Southport, Connecticut, and I had to be me, and the only way I could be me was to walk out of the door at night and go to a Democratic committee meeting, and that's how I got back involved into politics. When Bob was in law school, we had been peripherally involved. He was a Vietnam veteran against the war. We did a little bit of working in Hartford, where he was in law school, for the local candidate, who happened to be John Bailey's son-in-law, which made it a little easy. But living in Hartford, our main political thing was making sure we got home in time on Election Day to vote against Richard Nixon.